Hi, my name is Meg Rice, and I'm a young farming champion. I would like to begin by acknowledging the Ngunnawal people, traditional custodians of the land on which I am speaking to you all today, and pay my respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our next guest in the Leadership is Language series, Han Worsley. Han Worsley is a passionate educator, gender equality advocate, and public speaker. Winning Country to Canberra's inaugural leadership competition in 2014 began a dedication to young rural women and non-binary people to recognise the value of rural communities and people and create meaningful change across Australia. They have developed and helped deliver leadership and empowerment workshops to over 3,500 students in 80 rural Australian communities as part of the C2C Project Empower Program, and spoken passionately at events across Australia for organisations such as the Australian Rural Leadership Foundation, the Australian Medical Students Association, the Australian National University, YWCA. A current STEM primary education student at the University of Canberra, Han is committed to improving the quality and accessibility of education across Australia. Han plans to return to rural Australia upon completion of her university studies. Han, we can't wait to hear a little bit more about you and Country to Canberra. First, we're going to hear a little bit about Han, and then the chair of the Youth Voices leadership team, Dione Howard, will join me for a Q&A session with Han.
Well, good evening, everybody. I feel really lucky to be here with Picture You in Agriculture to talk to you guys a little bit about Country to Canberra's volunteer team. But before that, I better introduce myself. My name is Han Worsley, and I'm the current CEO of Country to Canberra. We are a rural women's organisation, and we're all about ensuring that young rural women and non-binary people can reach their leadership potential, regardless of the location that they grow up in, their access to services, and the opportunities that they're given. We believe rural Australia has so much to offer, and especially so that the young women in rural Australia have so much to offer as well. So I'm really excited to be here tonight to chat a little bit about how our volunteer team works and how we make sure that we're actually delivering on those objectives and reaching the people that we need to reach. So to start with, I want to talk about how lucky I feel to be a part of this volunteer team and how I got to be here, because I think that is going to play a lot into the discussion that we have this evening. So back in 2014, Country to Canberra began as a small organisation run by then CEO and the founder, Hannah Wandel. And I was one of the winners of the leadership competition that Country to Canberra ran. And that began my association with Country to Canberra. So from initially being a program participant to an engaged alumni and ultimately to a volunteer, I've kind of experienced Country to Canberra in a bunch of different roles. And that's been really important to me along my volunteering journey, is that the organisation has always been keen to keep my engagement, to invest in, the opportunities that I'm looking for, and to ensure that my voice is always heard. So ultimately, I have ended up in the CEO position, and that comes down to the CEO, or then CEO, Hannah Wandel, actually tapping me on the shoulder and talking to me about that opportunity, and then I eventually decided to go for it. So to begin with tonight, I want to talk about how volunteering is about seeing and capturing potential within the networks around you. For me personally, I know, reflecting on that if Hannah had advertised for a CEO position as a volunteer, I would never have put my hand up. I didn't have that kind of self-belief then. And I know that sort of recommendation, or that faith that she had in me, really gave me an opportunity that I would never have otherwise taken. So that's a really important thing for us within our volunteer team at Country to Canberra and within our broader networks, is that when we are looking to bring volunteers on, it's really important for us to consider the strengths that we know are already in our community, the people who we can tap on the shoulder and request their assistance and see if they're interested. And that's been a really big part of our volunteering journey. Now, what I want to do now is show you a quick video from one of our newest volunteers, Puru. She jumped on very recently as the newsletter coordinator with Country to Canberra. And I want to share that video because she shares some really interesting insights into the way we recruit our volunteers, and also the way in which we tap into potential that they may not even realise that they have.
Hi, I'm Puru Gordon and I am the newsletter coordinator volunteer at Country to Canberra. I stumbled across C2C in my first year of uni back in 2017, where I admired the work C2C do in empowering young rural women to reach their leadership potential and provide other opportunities that might not otherwise be given. Having grown up in remote New South Wales, I'm well aware of the disadvantages location can bring, but I also recognise the immense talent that exists within these areas. I began following C2C on LinkedIn, which is where I, funnily enough, noticed an advertisement for website publisher volunteers. Having just finished my ag science degree at Sydney Uni, I thought now was a good opportunity to try something new and volunteer with C2C. I was fortunate enough to be given the opportunity to go to boarding school where I was able to reach my own leadership potential, and I want to be able to give other rural women the opportunity to reach their leadership potential outside of major Australian cities. Not having any prior experience with website publishing, the role went to two very accomplished women. And a few days later, Alicia got in contact with me and asked if I would like to take over the reins of the newsletter coordinator role, which I jumped at the opportunity. I thought it was a great opportunity to still be part of the C2C team and volunteer in other capacities, meet new people, learn new things, and strengthen my connections with rural Australia. I've always loved writing and reporting, and if ag science didn't work out at uni, it was always going to be my backup to do journalism. So I just thought it was a great opportunity that I couldn't miss. Thank you.
So as Puru said, she actually applied for a different role to what we ultimately offered her. Now, our Country to Canberra team comprises of almost 20 volunteers from all across Australia, and we try to tap into their skills that they provide us, even if sometimes it isn't for the exact role they have applied for. So like Pru said, she applied for our website volunteer, but unfortunately we did have two other people who were just slightly better qualified in those web skills, but we knew that we couldn't let Pru go. We saw that opportunity, we saw that potential in her, and capitalizing on that was really important. So when we did have an opening come up for newsletter coordinator, we jumped at that. And that's been a really fantastic relationship to see build. We're really grateful for new faces like Pru to come and join the team. I think it's really important when you consider that our team does have people from all over Australia, from all different backgrounds, not all of them necessarily rural and regional, that we consider that there's a lot of diversity in the team too. So when we do advertise for positions, when we do look to give those positions to applicants or people that we request their input from, we need to make sure that we're reflecting the diversity of our community. And that's been a really big challenge for us, but something that we're really excited to be improving upon this year. Now I want to talk a little bit about how it's also about supporting the potential within your own team. And for us, it's really been about ensuring that we fulfill our desire and our mission to support young rural women and non-binary people into leadership. We want to see more women, more young binary people, especially from rural Australia, taking advantage of the leadership positions across the country. And so we've tried to embody that within our own team as well. We need to make sure that we are actually creating that leadership pipeline for young people and making sure that their voices are heard. So what we try to do for our volunteers is to look for places where we can extend their ability, look for places where we can connect them with people who are going to support their career, maybe improve their development or provide them with a new skill. So now we'll watch a quick video from one of our longest running volunteers, Alicia, and she's also our volunteer director. So she helps to support our entire team, as well as being executive officer to myself. So we're very grateful for Alicia, and we'll just quickly listen to what she has to say.
Hello, my name is Aliciathorpe and I'm a volunteer with Country to Canberra based here in Perth on beautiful YWCA country, and I'm so excited to be sharing with you today a little bit about my journey and involvement with the organisation. Initially in 2015, I was a winner of the leadership competition, and ever since my trip to Canberra, my life absolutely changed for the better. And so I was absolutely thrilled for the opportunity to come on board as a programs volunteer in 2018. And ever since then, I've slowly taken on more roles and am currently the volunteer director and have the absolute privilege of supporting and managing our wonderful team of volunteers. And I'm also the executive officer, and I'm able to, and lucky enough to support Han in their role as CEO. I think something truly incredible about Country to Canberra is the fact that we mirror within our own organisation our mission of empowering young rural women and non-binary people to reach their leadership potential. And I think that's an absolute testament to the leadership of Hannah Wandel, who is the founder and current chair of our board, who had this vision to create a strong trajectory and pathway for young women and non-binary people to transition into leadership roles. And I think that's absolutely representative in the fact that Han has now stepped into role of chair and created a pathway for Han Worsley to transition into CEO and for me to take on more roles. And that currently happens throughout our whole team. So I think we really embody what we're trying to achieve as an organisation through our own team and structure. I think the other thing that is absolutely phenomenal is the fact that our team is so dedicated and committed and is so on board with our mission and wholeheartedly value this. And I think it's a privilege to work with them every single day. I feel so inspired and motivated by everybody's commitment to our work. And I think it's just a really, really fantastic team to be a part of, and our organisation continues to grow and evolve and go from strength to strength. So yeah, thanks for listening to a couple of my reflections today.
So as you heard from Alicia, it's been a real priority of Country to Canberra to create that leadership pipeline, and ensuring that someone like Alicia, who did come in as an alumni like myself, does actually get those opportunities to move into new spaces, to try new things. We actually make sure that we are fulfilling our mission in a way that goes beyond our programs. Now, having someone like Alicia as a volunteer director has been a really key part of our team as well, and part of that both retention of volunteers and also promoting them into new positions and new areas. So Alicia's responsible for communicating with them, supporting them, and ensuring that we are inclusive of the diversity within our team. So for example, we have a member of our team currently on maternity leave. We have quite a number of people on our team who work in another volunteer position or multiple jobs, or they have university commitments, and we try to be really accommodating of all of that. And I think that that strength comes from diversity, that our team ethos has been developed to include people's other commitments and to support them. And in doing that, we create a team full of people who are dedicated to our cause, who are dedicated to each other, and who are going to understand that we are going to be there to support them. And so I think ultimately, knowing that we have a team behind those volunteers that has their back, that looks for where they have potential and that supports them to make the most of that, that's been our biggest strength as a Country to Canberra volunteer team. So I hope that you've gotten a little bit out of that. It's certainly been a big learning curve for me taking on this role. And I look forward to having a Q&A session with Dione and Meg very shortly to kind of get into that a little bit more and about that learning experience of managing a volunteer team.
Hen, that was amazing. Really amazing. Well done on putting that together. So to kick off the Q&A, Hannah, as a passionate educator and advocate, can you please share a little bit more about what inspires volunteers to join Country to Canberra and how you keep them engaged? I'd be particularly interested to hear more about how you keep alumni engaged.
For us and our kind of model that we have of volunteering is that we do bring on quite a few people who have been alumni previously with Country to Canberra. And that obviously connects to that desire to give opportunities to particularly young people. There's always got to be someone to give those applicants their first try at something, you know, their first go at running a social media page or managing an advisory council. And we really are trying to be that organisation. But the other thing that we do is we try and draw into our networks people who we know have the skill set to mentor those young people as well. And so retention of volunteers for us and engaging them is all about providing them with opportunity, as much as we take the opportunity to have such wonderful people on our team. So typically it's about really engaging with them when they first come on board about why did they actually apply for a position? What are they interested in getting out of volunteering for Country to Canberra? What are skills that they know they're not confident in, but that they want to develop in? And then also whether or not they're interested in partnering with someone, with being mentored by someone, and what parts of the team they're interested in working in. And I think that communication makes sure that volunteers feel like they're heard. And it also means that we never ask people to take on things they're not comfortable with at all. For example, some of our volunteers don't like public speaking, so we won't ask them to MC an event. However, if we know that someone's really trying to develop their public speaking skills, that's the person we're going to tap on the shoulder. And I think that generates not only goodwill towards the organisation, but also a mutual understanding that we're all here to support each other. We're all here to give everyone a go, and that our team culture is about supporting people into new positions.
A document where you record skills or new opportunities that people would like to give a go?
Yeah, so our volunteer director, Alicia, who you heard from before, she does keep track of all of that. So we have kind of a touch base meeting with our volunteers every year, as well as at different points. If we do notice someone is perhaps struggling with the workload, we will organise to touch base with them. And that's completely from a point of, hey, we've noticed you might be struggling with what you were previously able to do. Do you need to reevaluate how much work you're doing at the moment? And in that way, we're able to have this constantly updated log of what people are desiring to get out of their agreement with Country to Canberra.
Yeah, that's an amazing resource to have.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Han, for what you've shared with us so far. I'm already feeling very inspired. So my first question is, how do you keep the volunteers motivated and aligned with the vision of Country to Canberra?
I honestly think that part of it is actually choosing volunteers who are motivated and aligned with our vision. So I think that it's more for us about maintaining that, obviously, across time. I think a lot of it's what we've already spoken about with the providing opportunities for those volunteers, but also it's about making sure that we properly invest in those volunteers. So, for example, recently we've been rolling out our Project Empower workshops for the second time with a new format. And so what we've decided to do is to provide external training to those volunteers on presentation skills, public speaking skills, developing your own brand. And then we're also trying to help them learn new skills, for example, taking on a mental health first aid certificate, that sort of thing. I think that providing those specific opportunities that are adjacent to, but obviously align with Country to Canberra's values, does mean that volunteers stay engaged, and that they're really willing to shout our name to the rooftops. They want to support us. They want to share our events and our programs around their networks. And when they get positive feedback from that then continues to develop that really positive relationship.
Yeah, and as you said, makes them feel proud to shout it from the rooftops and really share the vision of what the organisation's trying to achieve. Thank you.
Han, how important is it to manage expectations and set boundaries when running a volunteer organisation? And do you have any strategies for doing that, both for yourself and with the volunteers?
I think that, I feel so lucky to have the volunteer team that I do, because they're exactly that. They're volunteers. They take on this position in addition to all of the other wonderful things that they do. The nature of the people that apply for these kinds of positions is that they are go-getters. They do have multiple things on their plate already, and they are really committed to making a change in their community. So we have to be conscious that the kinds of people that typically volunteer for roles are often the busiest people. They're the ones with the least time. And I know that's certainly true for myself. So for me personally, managing my time so that I do treat it a little bit like a job, where I schedule time to look at emails. I don't have my volunteering Country to Canberra emails on my phone. It's a laptop only domain. Other things like that to make sure that when I'm on for Country to Canberra, I'm on and I'm working on that. And otherwise, there's no expectation for me to give up things like my university studies or my paid work in order to do my volunteer work. Because unfortunately, that's just not the way the real world is going to work. And in terms of then managing that for a team, setting those expectations up front is really important. So for all of our advertisements, we're really clear about approximately how many hours we're going to require from people per week. And if that person from their application then gets to our interview stage, we have a really frank discussion with them as well about the fact that as a volunteer team, work comes in ebbs and flows. So we do need to have people on our team that are able to cope sometimes with maybe 5 or 6 hours work a week for a role that said only 1 to 2. But knowing that there may be months of the year where it is only that 1 hour, if that, of workload. So setting those expectations right from the application phase, right from the interview phase, means that we can hold people to those expectations, but that those people also know exactly when they need to communicate with our volunteer director or myself that they're not going to be able to meet them. And then we can set up some changes to support them.
Got another question for you. Do you have any hot tips for managing volunteers?
I have to say this is a very, very new space for me. So coming on as CEO, I think sort of in September, October of 2020 officially. So I really am very new to the position. What I have found so far though is that maintaining really open lines of communication as CEO is really important. So although Alicia is incredible in her role as volunteer director, if I'm going to be the one to have a tricky conversation with someone, if perhaps they're not performing to what I expect or we're having some other kind of difficulty, that should never be the first time that I speak directly with that person. So I want to maintain really clear expectations and really just positive conversations with people all the time. So that's been a big thing for me. And I think then the other thing though, which sounds a little bit hypocritical, but is delegating really clearly. So making sure that volunteers know exactly who they need to contact. Is their next person up Alicia, or is it another person within our team? And at what point should they contact? So I think for me, what I've learned, people, it is not a paid role. You cannot treat volunteers like paid employees. And so for me, it's always been about maintaining a really positive relationship with them and ensuring that no matter what happens, it's really healthy conversations and a healthy approach to this extra work that we're lucky to have people volunteer to take on.
That's so true. And yeah, thank you so much for your insights there.
Hannah, with Country to Canberra being such a multifaceted organisation, how do you keep your volunteers inspired and, as you just mentioned, a really positive environment? Do you set some guidelines? I know you're a wonderful role model from the top down, but can you share a bit more about that, please?
Yeah, definitely. I think keeping volunteers inspired can be a tricky one when, for example, our team only meets all together, once every 6 weeks. So there is quite a bit of time where perhaps the whole team isn't talking to each other. One of the things that I think is really important with that is that our social media is always there. It's always really positive, and that we have a really great network of other organisations like Picture You in Agriculture who are constantly sharing things from and generating conversations with. I think that keeps the conversation going about the organisation, even if people aren't necessarily directly involved with it. And then it helps them to keep that thought process going. Do they have something new to bring up at the next meeting? Do they have a new idea that they want to implement in other areas where perhaps they want us to be a referee? I think it's about taking that kind of holistic view of why people volunteer and what's going to inspire them to continue that arrangement. That can sometimes be tricky, but I do think that constantly keeping our name out there and making sure that people feel like they're part of an organisation that's truly making a difference is kind of that first step to keeping them inspired.
Yeah, that's a wonderful tip.
My next question, Han, you probably did touch on it earlier with even down how you manage your emails, but I was just wondering, how do you monitor your time to avoid volunteer fatigue?
Yeah, for sure. It's a really tricky one. And I know, like I said, my personality is just that I want to commit everything to everything. And being an organisation that I have had so much to do with. Like since I was 15, 16 years old, I've been involved with Country to Canberra. So, you know, my values are so closely tied to this organisation that sometimes it is really hard to switch off. What I've found really good though is flagging periods ahead with other people in the team who can potentially support me, so that then I don't feel like because I often feel guilty if I do take an entire week off my emails or something like that. If I take steps to inform, you know, my team that I'm taking a week off, put the notification on my emails, then I can rest a bit easier taking that time. The other thing that I think is really important is having a mentor. So I've been really lucky to have Hannah Wandel as a mentor, but I also have another mentor through a different organisation. And both of those people hold me accountable. And they know and remind me that this is a volunteer role and that you need to sometimes take a step back and prioritize other things. And that's okay. That's not a reflection on me that my values are slipping or that I don't, thoroughly believe in what Country to Canberra does. It's because I'm human and because, we can't unfortunately get paid for volunteer work all of the time. So we just need to acknowledge, I guess, its place in our life for what it is.
Thank you. Yeah, it's that's really struck a chord with about the importance of setting those boundaries and telling those people that you're working with that they exist there's no point in thinking them in your head without actually articulating them.
Exactly. I think that accountability is my biggest thing because, to be honest, I can't trust myself to not jump on and look at my emails. I need to have told someone that I'm not doing it so that I feel like I need to hold myself to that.
Han, we would love to know what's one of the biggest lessons you've learnt stepping into the role of CEO and running a volunteer organisation.
I think, honestly, it's been a really great thing for me to step into a role that I have had literally no experience in, and having Hannah, I guess, see that potential in me and support me into that role has made me realise that in my position now, I am also able to do that for other people. So for me, it's been all about kind of trying to really take a deep breath and believe that I'm capable, and also to believe that it's okay to mess things up and that there are people who'll support me if that does happen. But also then I need to be able to offer those same opportunities to other people to be that support network when they mess up, and to just promote a culture of it's okay to apply for things that you don't have experience in. It's okay to give things a go for the first time. I think that that's been the biggest thing. And I know that as women and non-binary people, we're so much less likely to do that than men are. And creating that culture within a team that is mostly female and non-binary means that I feel like I'm generating that culture, hopefully then magnifying it into other parts of our network.
Last question from me, Han. What is your absolute favourite thing about being a volunteer with Country to Canberra?
I definitely think that it's the connection with the young rural women and non-binary people across Australia, and actually being able to see the difference that our wonderful team of volunteers makes. There is nothing better for volunteer motivation and inspiration than, I guess, seeing their work and knowing that what they're doing is making an impact. So, for example, recently we ran our first Project Empower workshop at Dione Central School, and getting feedback from those girls who, many of them had not had anything really to do with feminism before. They were at a school where they expressed that they had some boys in their year who were being particularly difficult, and having then feedback at the end that said, "Thank you so much. You've made a difference in my mindset. You've inspired me to change or make change." Those sort of little things make such a difference. And I think that's been the most fantastic thing of being a part of Country to Canberra.
Thank you. It's such a powerful, wonderful thing that you guys are doing. So, thank you so much for sharing that very special part of what you do with us.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been really lovely to chat about it.
Yes, thank you, Han. Thank you for inspiring us all and sharing so much about the wonderful work that you do, as well as the work of Country to Canberra more broadly. You've definitely given us lots of food for thought, and we can't wait to implement some of those within Young Farming Champion Pitch You in Agriculture Network. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely to talk about it all.